It is essential that I do something with the majority of these tomatoes today. So we're making salsa. This is a very rustic recipe. You know me, I'm not big on measurements. So this is what you will need. 2 cookie sheets full of tomatoes. It doesn't matter what kind, single layer, okay? You want it to look like this. You need 2 of these. You will need 3 to 4 poblano peppers, depending on the size. You will need 1 red onion. You will need 1 bunch of cilantro. You will need about a handful of green onion. You will need about 8 cloves of garlic. You will need lemon for the canning process. Plenty of salt. And this is where it becomes your choice. For a batch of salsa this big, I tend to do 4 jalapenos and 4 cayenne peppers. Now canning is way simpler than people make it out to be. So let's get started with our water bath because it takes the longest. As you can see, I have a cookie cooling rack at the bottom because you want the water to be able to get to all sides of the jar. Now all you're gonna do is you're going to fit your jars into here. All right, we have our whole pot filled with the jars that we're gonna use. This is the sterilization process. We're going to fill this pot up with water. Once your pot actually comes to a boil, it needs to be at a rolling boil for 10 minutes, and then your jars are sterilized. My water bath is full. I'm gonna start the stove, put the lid on, and let it come to a boil. First things first, we've got to wash these tomatoes. I am using the skins, I'm not peeling them, so washing is important. Now that all of our tomatoes are rinsed, we are just going to take a small paring knife and a food processor, because I am not chopping all of these myself. And we take the paring knife and we essentially just core that top there, and then any bad spots. See this bad spot? We don't want that. We're gonna get rid of that. In fact, we're just gonna cut this whole side off because the last thing you want is bad stuff in your canned goods. And then we're just gonna take a chop like that. I try to make all of mine about the same size. That way when I blitz them in the food processor, they all tend to be the same size. Tomato, knife, core, slice in half, and then in half again. Food processor. Repeat over and over and over. When my food processor is about this full, we blitz. I am not going to be eating a watery salsa. I want it thick and chunky. So we're gonna take our blitzed tomatoes and strain them over a colander while we do our next batch. We're gonna get all of that liquid out and get rid of it. Tomatoes have been straining. As you can see, there's quite a bit of juice in the bottom. And now we're just gonna take these strained tomatoes and put them in a big Dutch oven. Regular tomatoes carry a lot more water than Roma's, so you want to make sure to strain these ones really good if you're looking for a thick and chunky salsa. Look at all that juice already. Now we add all the fun ingredients. I'm gonna start with the jalapeno. All I do is I cut the top off, and then right down the middle, you can leave the seeds in or take them out. I usually take the jalapeno seeds out because I leave the cayenne pepper seeds in. Well, I don't fully take them out, but I just get that membrane. Now we're moving on to the cayenne. I just cut the top off and then make fairly small slices and right into the food processor. Now before I add the poblano peppers to this and chop it again, I'm going to go ahead and blitz this because I want these hot peppers diced really, really, really small. I want them integrated with the whole salsa. I gave the cayenne and jalapenos a really good blitz, and now we're gonna go ahead with the poblanos. Use however many your little heart desires. I think I'm gonna use 4 today because this is a big batch of salsa and these are slightly small poblanos. Keep them all virtually the same size and then straight into the food processor. Now we're gonna add the peppers to the tomatoes. I'm just gonna give it a little mix just to make sure that my pepper to tomato ratio is significant enough because we have a lot of tomatoes today. Now we're dicing an onion. We are going to use a whole red onion. Again, it goes in the food processor because nobody has time to dice this many things. Chop, chop, chop. food processor. Got a little carried away and diced my onion a little too small, but it's what we're gonna have to use today. Also, it's rocking my world. Ah, Jiminy crickets. Whew. Now we're on to the garlic cloves. I don't put this in the food processor because it pulverizes it too much. Also, don't go buy the garlic in a jar. Get the real garlic and take the time to do this. I'm gonna go ahead and smash all of these cloves of garlic, and then once they're all smashed, I'm going to chop them up even more with my knife. Garlic right into the pot and mix. The last two things we need to chop are our green onions and cilantro. The green onions and cilantro do not go into the pot while it's cooking on the stove. After the salsa has been cooking for about 20 or 30 minutes on the stove, then you will let it cool just slightly and add the green onion and cilantro. But I like to have it prepped and prepared. Plus, we've got plenty of time because that's still not boiling yet. Now with the cilantro, I just cut the bulk of the stems off, and I'm not gonna peel each one of these cilantro stems. So we just do a rough chop. My pot is at a gentle boil. I've put my salsa on the stove and I'm gonna cook this for about 20 minutes. All right, it's been about 20 minutes on the salsa. Can you see how chunky it still is? That is why draining that liquid off is crucial. We're gonna turn it off. Just set it to the back. While the salsa is cooling, I'm going to put this on a simmer. This is the part that I hate the most because this water bath is deep. You take your little canning things and you grab a glass, and then you want to drain the water out of it. And then this is going to go over on a clean cookie sheet. Now that our salsa is off of the stove, we're going to add salt. You're going to want to add about 6 to 7 teaspoons of salt. I use just a pink Himalayan salt. And go ahead and give that a good mix. You can do this while it's on the stove too. It's totally fine. I just forgot. And now we're going to add the green onion and the cilantro. You might not use all of the jars that you sterilized, but it is better to have more than not enough. Pint jar takes 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. This is just lemons that I juiced. I don't use that stuff that you already buy. I'm gonna go ahead and fill a couple of these up. Well, not a couple, probably 5 or 6. And now we're just gonna add the salsa. And you want it to come almost to the brim, about 1/2 inch to the top. That's perfect. Then you're gonna take a knife and you're just gonna make sure that there's no like air bubbles in there. I ended up with 6 jars of salsa, 3 extra jars. This step is very important. You want to make sure that the sides, but most importantly, this top seal is completely clean of all debris. That way, they seal properly. Add a seal, add a lid. And you just want this to be finger tight. I've got all 6 jars ready for the water bath. Let's go. Again, very hot. You need to be super careful. So you just lower these in. You want to make sure that the water line is about 2 inches above the jars. And you will have to remove some water when you put these in here because of displacement. Remember earlier, as you were sterilizing, the jars were full of water? Well, now they are full of salsa, so you might overflow. There's an easy solution. Just take a measuring cup and start pouring it down the drain. Now the lid goes on and it needs to come to a rolling boil. Once the rolling boil starts, then you can set a timer for 15 minutes, and you want to make sure that the water stays above the jar line the entire time. So if you need to add water during the 15 minutes, add water. All right, the timer just went off, so we're gonna turn the stove off, remove the lid and carefully, very carefully, take these hot jars of salsa out and set them on a cookie sheet. One last step I like to do, just so that they get a good seal on them, is if you turn them upside down, heat will make them seal amazingly. It is now several hours later, and I'm going to check these and make sure that every one of them sealed. So I just always take these off because I only have so many rings and they're not necessary to be on there. Unless you're gifting them to somebody, then you want to leave them on. You just want to make sure that this is tight and you can't push it down, and you can't. If you want to, you can always do one of those. Thanks for canning salsa with me.